Hi Year 10s and welcome to the video which is going to explain the persuasive oral presentation task that you need to do. So today we're going to look at the requirements of the task, the format that you need to create your presentation in, and the criteria that you're going to be assessed on. Okay, so the first thing that you need to do to start this task is to decide on an issue. Do a little bit of research, have a look at what's happening in the media right now, and see if there's anything that that you're interested in. A good way to check if your topic is an issue is to complete this checklist. So you want to make sure that this is a topic that there are multiple sides of debate about, or multiple sides to the debate, I should say, and that is current in society today. So the first thing is, can it be rewritten into a should sentence? So for example, greyhound racing, as an idea, can be rewritten into greyhound racing should be banned in Australia. So there we can see what it is that you're actually arguing about the topic of greyhound racing. So we can see that that's an issue. You also need to think about, is there more than one side to the issue? For example, a presentation on domestic violence probably won't be an issue because there's no one who's supporting it and thinking that it should be allowed. You need to make sure that it's not, for example, women in Australia should be allowed to vote. Well, women in Australia are already allowed to vote. So that kind of links into the last dot point as well. Is this issue represented in the media? So you need to make sure that it's relevant to what's happening right now. There's no point writing a presentation on why women should be allowed to vote because they already can. And then we just go back up to the dot point before that. Are there at least two opposing arguments? You need to include a rebuttal in your piece. So for this to work, you need to have an opposition. So for example, if you are studying or you're writing about the issue of whether or not uniforms should be allowed in Australia, your contention might be, well, uniforms should be banned. You need to think about, what are people going to say in opposition to that? So there will be people who say, no, uniforms shouldn't be banned because blah, blah, blah. You need to think of an argument that contradicts that argument that people are going to make about your issue. Then you need to develop your contention. So look at what it is that people think about your issue in society. So read or watch or listen to things in the media, the people around you, articles on, like in newspapers, or that you might see on social media. Just see what's out there. Ask yourself the following questions. Do you agree with what other people are saying? Do you agree with the way that things are now? What do you think should be done about this issue? And you need to have a desired outcome. It's really important that you're not just saying, for example, uniforms are bad, okay? That's a statement, yes, but it doesn't tell me what you think should actually happen. It doesn't tell me what your desired outcome is. Your presentation needs to be thoroughly researched. So once you've got your issue, you've got your contention, you're ready to look for some evidence to support what it is that you're saying about your topic. You need to draw in evidence such as statistics, expert opinion, and personal stories. They make your presentation persuasive. They convince people to believe your side of the topic. You can begin looking for information on relevant websites in newspapers and television, in documentaries, journal articles, books, podcasts. There's a whole lot of different options. Just make sure that you are keeping a list of where you're getting your information from, because you will be required to provide a bibliography as well. So just be aware of that while you're doing your research. Okay, the format of the presentation. It needs to be 3 to 4 minutes in length. It shouldn't be any shorter or any longer than that. You really need to have a very clear contention that includes a desired outcome. You need to use a range of persuasive techniques, so things like using statistics and expert opinion, personal stories, all of those things. You need to incorporate a bibliography of resources that you've used and websites where you've gotten information from, all of those sorts of things. It needs to be assisted by a visual aid as well. So you need to have a PowerPoint or a Prezi or a short video to go with it that supports what you're saying about your issue. So on the visual aid, please don't provide a PowerPoint that's just slides with your speech on it. Okay, the audience wants to listen to what you're saying, and then also they want that to be reinforced by some images or a quote or something that can be projected behind you, but they shouldn't be reading what you're saying at the same time as you're reading it. Okay, so the less writing you have on your visual aid, the better. Some things that you could include in your visual aid include visual representations of statistics or data. So you're looking for things like graphs and charts that demonstrate or highlight the differences or the similarities between statistics and data. Photographs of people or places or things that are affected by your issue. So for example, if you're doing greyhound racing, you might have a photo of a rescued greyhound. Images that relate to your contention or to your issue, so paintings, flags, photographs, that sort of thing. And you might also include important quotes from experts or people who have been affected by this particular issue. These should be really quite short, but they can be really useful to kind of project and to have up there so the audience can see it as you're discussing what this quote means or how it's relevant to your particular issue. The final slide of your visual aid needs to be a bibliography of all of the resources that you've used. So like I said earlier, please make sure you are keeping a list of where you're getting your information from as you're working your way through this task. All right, so when it's your time to present, these are the things that you need to bring. You need to bring a copy of your speech written out sort of, as an entire speech. But you also need to provide your teacher with the cue cards that you use if you are using cue cards. So most of you will use cue cards. It's either, your choice will be to use cue cards or to not have any prompt at all. So if you are having cue cards, which most of you will, make sure you use dot points. We don't want to see full sentences or paragraphs. You need to make sure you bring a copy of your visual aid on a USB, or make sure it's emailed to your teacher beforehand. And you need to have a device to display your visual aid on. If you don't have one, or it's not going to work for whatever reason, you need to make sure you let your teacher know with enough notice so that they can organise a way for you to present your visual aid. You also need to bring your practice log. Okay, this is the criteria. This is what you're going to be marked on. So it'll be marked on the selection of your content. So where have you gotten your information from? And, is this an issue that is relevant today? Does it have multiple sides? Do you have a contention that is effective and that has a desired outcome? You're going to be marked on the effectiveness of your visual aid. So all of the things that we talked about on the visual aid slide, they're the kinds of things that we're going to be looking for. So not having huge amounts of text, but having things that support your contention and show the audience what it is that you're saying about your issue. The rehearsal of your presentation and implementation of the feedback. So in the practice log, there's space for you to record when you've actually practiced your speech, what feedback you got, and then make some comment about, how are you going to actually implement that feedback? What are you going to change about your presentation? The clarity, tone, and pace of your presentation. So clarity means how clear it is. Can we understand the words that you're saying, or are you mumbling? Are you too quiet? The tone is, are you varying the pitch of your voice to make yourself sound interesting, or does it sound like you're just reading off a piece of paper? And pace is how fast or slow you're speaking. So are you speaking at a speed that is appropriate for your audience to be able to listen and understand what you're saying? We're also looking for sustained eye contact and body language. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to be making direct eye contact with people the entire time, but you also can't be looking at your sheet and just reading off that the whole time either. All right, that takes us to the end of the slides about the oral presentation. If you do have any questions, please make sure you contact your teacher, and they'll be able to clarify any concerns that you might have. But otherwise, you should be going now and getting started on looking for different issues and trying to choose one and determining your contention. So good luck, everyone.